Hello, everyone. Today we will understand one of the most important principles in population genetics, which is Hardy Weinberg Equilibrium. Most students know the formula, but they cannot apply it correctly. So, after this video, we will try to understand the concept better, what P and Q actually represent in a population. Try to derive the equation, which is P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared is equals to 1. And finally, try to solve the NEET questions. This simple equation actually helps us determine whether evolution is occurring in population or not. Now, before we solve the numericals, let's understand the logic behind it. Imagine there is a population where there is no mutation, no migration, no natural selection, and random mating is happening. What will happen to the allele frequencies over generation? They will remain constant. And that stability is what we call Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is a state of stable allele genotype frequencies, which is ideal for a population where there is no evolutionary force in action. The baseline expectation of this is that the allele frequencies remain constant across generations. What are those equilibrium conditions that makes the equation possible? I'll tell you again, which is that should not be any mutation in the population, no migration, no natural selection, always random mating, and it is considered always in a large population. So now the actual equation, which is P plus Q is equals to 1. P is the frequency of dominant allele, not phenotype, allele, and Q is the frequency of recessive allele. Now, actually, the deviation of the equation, which is P square. How does P square come from? So as I told you earlier here that P is the frequency of dominant allele, but here we will talk about the phenotype frequency. Okay, so P square is equals to P into P, and this P into P comes from AA, dominant phenotype, or the dominant allele present in the gene pool. So homozygous dominant become P into P is equals to P square. The homozygous recessive becomes Q into Q is equals to Q square. And this heterozygous becomes P into Q plus P into Q, which becomes 2PQ. If you still have problem that how this A and A come from, so in diploid organism, there's always two alleles per gene or per character, and that's how this P into P or AA or P square come into existence. So this states that P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equals to 1. All the frequencies of genotype, recessive, dominant, heterozygous, always comes to 1. Homozygous dominant, two copies of dominant allele. Heterozygous, which means intermediate, one dominant allele, one recessive allele, and when recessive allele come into action, we call it carriers. Why carriers? Because there will be the disease or the recessiveness present in them, but it will not be visible. It will be masked due to the dominant allele present in the heterozygous. And lastly, Q square will become two copies of recessive allele. Now, question. So the question is, in a population, the frequency of recessive phenotype is given. Phenotype, not allele. Remember this. So if it is phenotype, it means it is Q square. So the frequency of recessive phenotype is given, which is 16%. We need to find recessive allele, the frequency of recessive allele. This is phenotype. This Q square. We have to find Q. And dominant allele and heterozygous individuals which will have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Okay, let's go. So the solution will be you have been given Q square, which is 16%. If you will turn it into decimal, it will become 0.16. To find the frequency of recessive allele, you will have to find the under root of 0.16, which will become 0.4. So that's your Q or recessive allele frequency. Now find the P or dominant allele frequency. All you have to do is just minus your Q from 1 because P plus Q is equals to 1. Just minus it from the 1 and you will find 0.6, which is the frequency of dominant allele. And to find heterozygous individual, we can use 2 into P into Q, which is 2 into 0.6 into 0.4 is equals to 0.48. So the genotype frequencies become P square, which is 0.6 into 0.6, which is 0.36. 2PQ, we already found it, 0.48. And Q square, we already knew it, which was 0.16. If you need to translate it to the percentage, I know how to do it. I hope you know how to do it. Finally, there is a common mistake that people do while calculating 2PQ from phenotype without finding the Q first. So find the Q first always. If there is P given and you have to find the 2PQ frequency, heterozygous frequency, always find the Q first and then proceed with your rest of the calculations. So now to sum it all up, P plus Q is equals to 1. This is the allele total, okay? P square plus 2, PQ plus Q square is the genotypic distribution. When given recessive phenotype, always start from Q square and always check the equilibrium assumption before applying the said model or said equation, because if there is mutation or there is migration and there is natural selection, the population is not large enough, this will not fit. It will not give you accurate answers. So I hope you liked today's class. Thank you so much.